it's an American tradition to go and challenge institutions and tear them down and rebuild them. And we've done it for ourselves. We did it for the world. And I'm just following in those footsteps. I'm not here to make people happy. I'm often offensive to people. And there's plenty of people that just think I'm the worst person alive. And there's plenty of people who think I'm a great guy. You know, it's not about that. It's about principles and the belief of humanity. And I see the problems. Others see them as well. And we have a common interest as a collective society to solve them. Because if we don't, the consequences of not are catastrophic. So we are challenging as a species everything right now. What does it mean, liberty and freedom? What are human rights? When does the right of the individual have to take a back seat to the right of the group? COVID is a great example of that. We've created a second-class citizen with COVID. They say, well, if you're unvaccinated, you can't go to the hotel, you can't go to the restaurant, you can't travel. And they say, well, that's for public protection. And I say, well, okay, well, if we're going to go down that road, then what criteria are you putting in, and how do you equally apply that standard to everybody? And we can't even get an answer there. Just say, well, no, it's public protection. So, okay. And so when you see this language of authoritarianism and the comfort that some people have stripping the rights of freedom of association, expression, and commerce from individuals for the collective good without a clear mandate on defining objectively what that collective good is and having oversight to that process, that's concerning. It's deeply concerning. So I think the default state of affairs is intolerable for everyone, not just me, but everyone. And everybody has their threshold. So some people say, well, it's okay for me, but if you're doing something to my children, that's wrong. Or it's okay for me, and maybe I'll agree the children are okay, but then other thresholds can exist, like maybe freezing of accounts and sovereign seizing of assets or these types of things, or declarations of martial law. So we all have our sacred milestones, and once they get crossed, it's no longer optional. You just have to do something. And we're watching that in the world, which is why there's so much unrest and there's, as I said, so little faith in institutions. I believe that it is incredibly important that every day we in our industry, the blockchain industry in particular, say, look, we're an aggregation of a lot of great thinkers from the past, the systems theory people, the cryptography people, the internet people who talked about the free flow of information and the social consequences of this. Okay, so the Arthur C. Clarkes and the Whole Earth Catalog crowd from the 70s and the 50s and so forth. And because that's evolved to a point where it's useful, we now should be in the conversation, and we should be evangelizing the reconstruction of institutions. But going from abstraction to specifics, people often get lost. So one example I love giving is there's a lot of people that seem to feel the U.S. voting system is broken. If you're on the left side of the spectrum, then in 2016, a big narrative was Russia co-opted the elections and took over everything, and Putin basically put Trump into office. There's so many people that did that. I mean, Saturday Night Live, every week, they had a guy pretending to be Putin and Alec Baldwin playing Trump and that whole relationship. He's an agent provocateur, a Manchurian candidate. Then in 2020, Trump people said, oh, the elections are incredibly corrupt, and how did Biden get all these votes and so forth? So there's a bipartisan agreement, just depending on who's in office, that the voting systems are corrupt. Why can people get away with these allegations? Because at the end of the day, if you're a voter in America, you have no way of verifying your vote was counted correctly, and the integrity of the election system as a whole. It's completely faith-based. You have to trust institutions, the very same institutions that have lied to us again and again and again, from the Iraq War to other things. And we're like, wait a minute here, we've seen the wizard behind the curtain. He's not a 12-foot tall guy. He's 4 feet tall and in terrible shape. Okay, let's be clear here. So then you say, well, blockchain institutions can change things. Well, how would it do that? Well, you can verify your vote. You can verify your vote was counted correctly, and you can verify the integrity of the election system without trusting any institution.